For those of you that are here and for those of you that are at home or watching this on the recording, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Richard Askam, and you are more than welcome to join us here on Print Island today to talk to a wonderful group of people about breaking the silence and how Sheep for Brains tackles the mental health crisis. A hugely important topic and a hugely talented bunch of people who are now going to introduce themselves one by one, and we're going to go with Adriane first.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Adriane Harrison. I am the VP of HR Consulting at Printing United Alliance, and I met Chris and Jess a year ago and have begun to interface with Sheep for Brains in a very positive way. So thank you for having me here today.
Absolute pleasure. You are more than welcome. Let's go with Jess.
Hello, everybody. I am Jess DeCola, one of the co-founders of Sheep for Brains, but my day job, I am the Director of Brand and Strategic Growth at Blooming Color. And I came together with these fine gentlemen here on the call a few years ago to start this little grassroots initiative that we feel so passionately about. And we're so happy that you're here, and we cannot wait to be with you next month in Vegas.
There we go. Thanks, Jess. Dave, you go next.
Yep, Dave Rosendahl, president at Mindfire, and Jess, Chris, and I, and John Bailey, who's not here today, came together, 2 years ago to start this thing, and we're just super honored that the movement has rallied around us, and thank you to Printing United for supporting the movement, and very excited to be here with everyone today and see everyone very soon.
And finally, but by no means least, Mr. Christopher Minn.
Hi, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you, Richard. Thanks for having me on. Chris Minn, Digital Inc., founder of Sheep for Brains. Absolutely buzzing, stoked, honoured, loving it that we've got this at Print United in 5 weeks. Yeah, amazing. And thanks for all the support in the chat already. I can see some all-stars in there. So yeah, thank you.
Good. Okay, well, you are all welcome to Print Island today. Thank you for taking the time to join me here. I just kind of want to start really this session by almost throwing it back to you as individuals, and particularly the co-founders of Sheep for Brains, to understand a little bit more about what really drew you in to not only the need for this organization, but maybe a personal reason why you felt it was necessary, and then found the allies that you did in yourselves, and therefore the impetus and the confidence to launch Sheep for Brains. Jess, you go first if you wouldn't mind.
So it was about two and a half years ago at Dscoop in Indianapolis. Chris, and this is the abbreviated version of it, but Chris, Dave, and I worked on some things from a marketing and sustainability perspective leading up to the conference, and a few webinars. We positioned ourselves with booth space that was right next to each other at the show. And John Bailey gets up on stage to hand his board chair position over to David Bennett, who we all know and love from Bennett Graphics down in Atlanta. And he got up there and threw out the script, and he said, I'm going to talk about the things that are, that have been affecting me as of late. And he talked about his family. He talked about losing business. He talked about, the struggles that he faces when you walk into an elevator at these conferences and you ask how you're doing and you say fine when you are burning at your core inside because you're really not fine and everything's not okay. And it was really impactful and powerful, and it really struck a chord with the three of us and everyone in that audience, really. And after that stage presence, the three of us got together and said, man, there's something there. We don't know what it is, but we need more of it. We need more of this vulnerability and authenticity and open dialogue and conversation about the real stuff. I mean, because we're here because we work in the print industry, and we know that this industry is hard. And from all different perspectives, right? As a working mom, as an entrepreneur, as someone from the next generation coming into this industry, from so many different perspectives, it's hard for different reasons. And there's nobody to better understand it than someone who's living it. And so we came together on a call not very long after that, the four of us. It was supposed to be 45 minutes, and we were on for like over 2 hours. And we said, there's something here. And so we still don't know what we're doing to this day, but we created this little space where people come together and we're by no stretch of the imagination experts, but we help provide resources to the community and provide a safe space for people to come talk about the shit that they're dealing with. And it has been the most humbling experience of, I think, my professional life and personal too. The stories that we've heard, the conversations that we've had, the people that have opened up that we didn't imagine for a second that they're there. And it has been a remarkable journey. So I know I said in a nutshell, that was more like a watermelon, but that's kind of how it started.
No, that's fine. And I'm going to take you to task a little bit now, Jess, because and I'll throw this to you, Dave.
Do it.
No, I'm going to throw this to you, Dave, actually, because Jess says you don't know what you're doing, and you so absolutely do, because what you're doing is opening the door for everybody to feel confident and comfortable to have difficult conversations. And we talk a lot in the industry about authenticity and genuine voices and so on and so forth. I think to sit there and say we don't know what we're doing actually is a good thing, because I don't think any of us really know what we're doing. And Dave, you must feel as though that's almost the USP of Sheep for Brains is we're just open. The door is open, our ears are open, our minds are open. Just let people talk. Is that your experience so far?
It's interesting you say that. I haven't thought this in a while about, my kind of feeling here when I entered the industry some 25 years ago. It's been a while. I was much younger, on the younger side for sure of everybody who was in the room with, like Rod Key. I don't know if you folks remember Rod Key. I think about him a lot. To me, it seemed like he was, he had it all together. Or Francis McMahon, who's been part of what we're doing, or Bob Neeson, just. I looked up to these people, and I would be in the room with them and feel like I had nothing to offer. I was afraid to talk to people, believe it or not. Those of you who know me now, I didn't have the inner confidence. I felt like I was basically a fraud in a room full of, people who had it all together. And of course, fast forward 10, 15 years, a little bit more maturity, I realized nobody has it together. We're all trying to figure this out, to your point, Rich. And life is tough. Life is hard. And I thought that I was uniquely inefficient or lacking credibility or whatever it was. But now leaning into what we're doing here with Sheep for Brains, not only is that vulnerability drawing other people to us, but it's also giving people permission to say, even now, that they feel those feelings. I certainly still feel them, not as strongly as I did, but I feel like most of the time I'm just making it up as I go along as well. Not only in business, but also as a parent, as a father, as a husband. We're all just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair to say, and I don't think there's many people would disagree with that sentiment, Dave, at all. And Chris, you have a sort of almost a unique perspective on this as well, from your background as an athlete and coming into the print industry. Imposter syndrome is the thing I hear most from most people that I speak to say, I don't know what I'm doing. You have always had to have that psychological wall that you've built. How much have you benefited from just being in these conversations and allowing yourself to be yourself?
I think it's amazing, Rich, that you mentioned that, because I think we forget that sports psychology is a massive part of performance. And if you remember back in the day when Usain Bolt came along, people used to say, he's not taking it seriously. He's messing about before the race. He's smiling. But actually, that was all part of the relaxation and being in control of the moment and enjoying the situation. And I think we forget that with our working lives, that actually mentally, as Dave says, we look at things the wrong way with the wrong perspectives. We prepare ourselves mentally incorrectly. And one of the biggest things that stood out for me at that particular Dscoop, and we must actually highlight Dscoop helping us kick this off as well, by the way, back in those 2 years ago. But one of the things that stood out for me was, we always say at a trade show, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm great. Business is great. Kids are great. Family's great. The wife's happy. Well, the last one's a lie straight away, right? But let's go right back into it and say, no, let's stop a second and let's be honest. It's not great. We've been through one of the hardest periods economically, geopolitically in modern time, and we need to help each other deal with that. But part of that comes from the mental awareness and mental preparation. And first of all, we need to address actually it's not right, and then our job really as as an industry is to provide the tools and resources to arm ourselves to take on those days and those challenges.
Yeah, and you've done an amazing job to date. And Adriane, I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring you in, and really Printing United Alliance have got behind Sheet for Brains this year. What was the decision behind that? What sort of first drew you to making mental health a core part of what you support, rather than, say, leaving it to the individual companies? Is it this feeling of team? Is it this feeling of camaraderie that Sheet for Brains have created?
Sure, that's absolutely part of it. Like I said, when I met these guys about a year ago, I was already heading down this pathway, and they gave such clarity about how important it is that, we kind of put the jets on it and went a little faster and have paired up. It's Printing United Alliance, the association, is in the business of our mission is helping businesses succeed and to thrive. And if we ignore something as important as mental health, we are doing a disservice to our members, and we're letting them manage a really difficult problem all on their own. So as a consultant for the Alliance for our members, I felt it was really important to try and address this as a culture issue, but let's be honest, right? Nobody wants to take on a big challenge like this unless it's an immediate problem presented to them, or it's really helpful to the bottom line. And so we have to make the business case for why mental health support and resources is important for the bottom line. And it is. It goes to retention, which goes to productivity, which goes to profitability, right? That's a real easy connecting the dots. But also, we are now hiring, and we're in a very challenging hiring environment where we compete for people. Mental health, blessedly, is less of a stigma with our younger workers, and they want mental health support, and they want to work for companies that recognize mental health as a concern and provide the support for it. So the time was right for this message to be adopted. And on a personal level, it's very important to me for a variety of reasons. And so I felt like, let's do it. Let's just jump right in and put it out there. And so with the other executive team at the Alliance, a decision was made that we really wanted to put resources into this for the expo, which is coming up next month. And so, so we're making a splash, we hope, with the help of Sheet for Brains in helping with this really important conversation and providing resources.
We are so grateful.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you guys do really well as well, Adriane, and is to identify a gap, if you like, in the services and the opportunities that members can have. You did it with iLearning, you did it with G7 Plus. It's not the same, but it's similar in terms of a need. What do you think members can expect from what you're offering, certainly at the expo, with regards to Sheet for Brains?
Yeah, well, at the expo, I think Sheet for Brains is going to have a space. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I think Chris and Jess may know more about this than Dave, but it's near the Alliance booth. So there's sort of a central hub of resources. And last year was a kickoff of something called Spill the Ink, which was to open conversations about different things that people who are attending the expo could literally participate, not watch. Conversations about important topics. And now Sheet for Brains will have a presence. They have a booth and will have a presence in the Spill the Ink area, and conversations will be generated and hopefully shared about how to manage mental health, not just like from a perspective of what to do for your workers, but also what to do for yourself, right? It's the whole genesis of their mission, and it's dovetailing with our mission of helping printing companies. And so we're really hoping that people can come here and take advantage of it. And look, we're not stupid. Nobody comes to Expo just to talk about mental health. That's not what you do. But while you're there, isn't it amazing to be able to connect with your peers about lots of things? And among those things that are so vitally important, like mental health. And if you're going to be vulnerable with your people who will then be vulnerable with you. Yep. So
Yeah.
And more importantly, I think understand those vulnerabilities because it's share,
100%.
we win together, we lose together as an industry, and I think it's hugely important that people get that, and it's moved beyond a nice to have, hasn't it? Really, for the industry, I think it's been clear and from the last couple of years that the work that these guys have been doing, that it's an absolute need to have, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, again, it's something we all share. 25. Well, here's an interesting statistic, and I'm going to not try to bore people with statistics, but they're meaningful to me, and maybe others will find it the same. 25% of people have a mental health condition in any given year. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's the loss of a loved one, maybe something's going on in your marriage or your business, and the pressures of the business. Like Chris said, we are in a unique time where the pressures are really escalating. So there's that. But here's what's really important, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I think 33% of young adults ages 18 to 25 experienced a mental illness in 2024. 33%. And look, that's our workforce of the future. Those are the people coming into our workspaces. We need to support them. We need to make sure that we keep them and retain them. And we want to make sure that they are in a good place. And honestly, we all know this, right? If we have people who are struggling in our workplaces, it brings down morale. And so the sort of ripple effects of unaddressed mental health issues affect so much about your business, so many things that you can't, directly say, oh, Joe Smith left because Jane Doe was really struggling, but Jane Doe was struggling, and that struggle bled into the culture. And then the culture, she was left hanging out to dry and unaddressed. What does it feel like when that person gets support from the boss? They say, take the time you need, do what you want. We will help you. Here are some resources. We have provided this in our healthcare benefits. You have this leave available to you. Please take care of yourself. Then the others look at that and say, wow, that is really stepping up. They are going to be there for me if and when I ever need it. And it means a lot. Whereas if they're left hung out to dry, it doesn't mean anything. And I also want to say this: vulnerability from the executives is a very difficult thing. It's a hard thing to do in front of your team. But if you do it, I think that you show that you are an authentic person. And there's a balance, right? You don't want to go too far and say, I'm a mess, I can't function, because then they lose confidence. But if you say, look, I struggle with anxiety about work, I struggle with the workload or whatever it is, and I'm getting support through our EAP. And I want you guys to know this EAP is available to you and that you too can benefit from it. And EAP is an employee assistance program, which provides often mental health support at no additional cost to the worker. So it's a barrier that is broken down by good benefits. So I don't know. I think I've lost that, Rich. I think I've lost the question, but what I want to say, as impassioned as I can, is that this is truly an important thing to running your business and creating a culture where you can retain your good workers, you can recruit great workers, you can build a team that has a sense of community and support that you might not otherwise have.
Yeah, agreed. And the worrying thing, as always, about statistics is they're the reported ones, not the unreported ones. And
33%. I was like, that's just.
And Jess, if I could come to you, obviously you've been heavily involved with Sheet for Brains since the start, and have attended most, if not all, of the sessions. And I don't want specifics and details, but there must be so many things that you've heard during those sessions that have struck you as and maybe even mirrored stuff in your own life that once you hear somebody, it's almost you need permission from somebody to tell your own story, don't you, by telling it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, there have been so many. I mean, we've had so many sessions, and I think the ones for us that have been the most, I don't want to say gut punching, but gut punching, for lack of a better phrase, are these in-person conversations. Yeah. We were at a conference not long ago, and it was a 3-part session, and we sat in a room with 150 people, and we had a panel discussion, and as the conversation started to evolve, you had people in the audience grabbing the microphone and literally crying. And there was one gentleman, of your stereotypical print industry age, who grabbed the phone and said, I don't think I've ever heard another man tell me that he loves me, or a friend. And we didn't even ask questions to spike these things. It was just this space where people felt like they could open up, because everyone in the room was able to be a little bit vulnerable and able to be a little bit telling of their side of their story. And so that moment for me, I left that conference and it took me a couple of weeks to kind of digest and process everything that happened there. But there's so many of those moments. I mean, me personally, Dave and I talk all the time about how we're no strangers to therapists, and we go to I just found a new one and I love her, and I'm so excited to start on this new journey with her, because it's kind of like dating. And I'm not going to, sit here and give you a 10-minute spiel about therapy, but the first one might not be the right one for you. But to have someone consistently that you can talk to and be vulnerable and open is something that I'm a huge advocate for. So lots of personal things in my life that have driven me to help create this space and this movement with these people, these beautiful people. But no, these sessions, and I know there's a handful of people I see in the chat that have been to those. There's nothing quite like feeling that you've allowed people to kind of come into their own in those moments, and to just feel seen and heard.
Dave, when you come away from these sort of sessions and have heard maybe things that you didn't expect from people that you didn't expect, how does it make you feel? Does it reassure you that there are people out there with shared experiences and solutions or problems that are waiting for a solution? How does it make you feel?
I mean, it makes me feel validated in what we're doing, right? But it also makes me feel, it makes me feel great. I selfishly tell these guys all the time, I feel like we get more out of this than some of the people in our sessions do. It does feel selfish at times because, ask Chris and Dave, we meet once a week and we're our own little mini therapy sessions. We take the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, just check in with each other. Aside from the 1,000 text messages we toss at one another. And if anything, finding someone in this community through these sessions or through these events or through these conversations to be that text buddy, just to check in, to say, hey, how are you doing? I know you're approaching peak season. Are you ready? Like did you take time for yourself today? Because everybody's going through something. And so, yeah, I think validated is a good way to say how I feel in those moments, but also just humbled and good. And like, yes, there are so many more people out there that I know are on the periphery. Like, that they're watching, that they see, that, that they hear and they're paying attention, or not necessarily following the LinkedIn group or attending the sessions. But Dave has so many stories where he's like, hey, I heard about so-and-so, or I saw so-and-so on LinkedIn, that we have no idea that they're even paying attention. So there's so many more people out there that are afraid almost to kind of get involved. But they're seeing and they're hearing, and maybe it'll take 3 or 4 or 5 times for them to see or hear, to feel comfortable to open up and be vulnerable. But that's our job, right? Is we're there for the one. We're not for everyone. We're for the one. And if we can help one person feel more in their skin and more comfortable talking about what they're going through and feel like they have a community, then we've accomplished what we set out to do a few years ago.
And Chris, that's a really interesting point that Jess has just made there about here for the one. I've heard John Bailey say that before a number of times, and I guess because of the nature and the sort of the global spread of the industry, there's an awful lot of people around the world that feel as though they are the only one, and I guess this is a brilliant way of. And you mentioned there, Jess, about maybe 4 or 5 times before people join in. Chris, do you find that is it a barrier to growing the organization, or do you feel as though that's the natural route in for most people, is to take their time?
I mean, I can talk about barriers, perceived barriers. I'm going to bring Dave in here slightly, because you mentioned the one of the KPIs we set ourselves as an organization or as a collective is to help the one. one person, and I think Dave can resonate to this a little bit more, but we've all lost people through suicide. And that's one of the things that's motivated us. And when we talk about those losses in the sessions, we share pictures. We actually mention that. I think you've been on a couple yourself, Rich, and seen some of the things we've spoken about, whether it's through family members or whatever. And I think that's one of the things that motivates us. We're not looking at numbers. We're not looking at a marketing campaign here. We don't care about the numbers. We care about helping one person. Every time we put a session together or we meet with someone, and if we can save one person each time, then we're doing what we set out to do. Dave, would you agree with that? I mean, I think, we're quite motivated by that, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, from so many angles, Chris. Guys, we don't get paid for this. This is not a job for us. We all were working 60, 70, 80 hours at our real jobs, right? And then being parents on top of that. And so every meeting that Jess is talking about, all of the work that we do in preparing, and Jess and Chris do a lot more work than I do. So they're really the ones carrying a lot of the weight here. But that comes with a toll, right? We feel that weight. So why do we do it? And it's really for the one. If we can help save the life of one person or change perspective for one person, Chris, as you're saying, it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
I've shared on stage, and I say it pretty much every time I have the opportunity to, is that for me, where this gets personal, Rich, is the aspect of suicide that you just mentioned, Chris. I mentioned this yesterday. I forget, we were in another interview. Maybe with Deborah Korn.
Yeah.
Where about 20 years ago, if you looked at the statistics, Adriane, around suicide in the US, every 15 minutes, 20 years ago, someone would take their life. Now, every 11 minutes is what it's trending towards. So we are losing more people to suicide. That's family members, that's children, that's parents, that's colleagues, that's people that we look up to. And for me, it's very personal. I lost my grandfather when I was a teenager, so in the mid-90s, to suicide. And then my grandpa's son, so my uncle, John, actually September 1st, about a little over 10 years ago, so coming up here is the anniversary, we lost him to suicide. In fact, in my office, and I don't think I've ever showed you guys this, if you can see this here, this is police tape that I gathered from the spot where he took his life. It was, cordoned off, or whatever that word is, with this yellow tape. And I have it here in my office, and I look at it every day. And so these wounds, for me, there is some scar tissue there, certainly still. They're far enough back that I've had time to reflect on them. But what I see, Rich and Chris, is that, there's a generational thing here as well that we have to be attentive to. So as business leaders, as executives, as parents, if we're feeling these things, often we're not the only one here. There's somebody above us or before us or our children below us who are also going through something. And in my case, this line of suicide going through my family is very real. And I know that whenever I'm standing in front of an audience of at least 20 or 30 people, that at least one other person, there is another one in that audience who has lost a friend, a colleague, or a family member to suicide. So, Chris, long-winded way of saying, I don't know what I'm saying, but yes.
No. I think that's what I wanted to. Sorry, Rich. I'm elongating the answer here, and I think the point I wanted to get to is that this is why it's important that we attend these organisations. We started off with Dscoop, which is a fantastic community, but we want to help the whole industry, and this is why it's important we bring this message to the Alliance and the Expo, because one of the things we found is that business leaders have reached out to us, and we've actually addressed their whole staff through an online session, because they're aware that they've got to do something to support the individual. So it's all about awareness. It's all about making people aware that they may not want to do anything or talk to us when we're in Vegas at the expo, but it may plant a seed to have a conversation later. And if it can do that, it's worth every penny of investment from everyone on this call.
Yeah, Chris, one more thing, Rich. I don't want to cut you off there. Sorry, but there's one more thing that I think. Yeah, there's one more thing I think that's really important that all of you who are here with us can help us in. And Rich, thank you to you for exposing this to your audience, and certainly Adriane to you and the Printing United crew. But I think, Rich, you mentioned this. There is a generational difference or a demographic difference in how people look at this idea of mental health and and therapy, right? As an example, personally, I've experienced clients who say to me, I don't know why you're wasting your time on this stupid thing, right? You should be working on our software, helping us develop more, whatever it is, right? Why are you even spending time on that?
Yeah.
We take those arrows. We understand. This isn't maybe for them yet, but we all have some work to do to help change the perception and eliminate some of that negative, stigma that's associated with the idea of investing in one's mental health. I have a very specific customer who I love dearly, who has that attitude, and says it's a waste of time, and you just need to man up, in his words, and just quit your bitching, basically. And what's fascinating is I've been with him in the back of an Uber as we head to a customer, and I look over at the guy and he's sweating. He's like rubbing his head. He's holding his chest. I'm like, dude, what's going on with you? He's like, oh man, every day I wake up, I just got so much coming at me. I just feel so anxious. My heart's beating like crazy. I can't stop thinking about all the stuff that's going wrong. And he's just sweating there. And I'm like, seriously? I mean, it sounds like you're having a panic attack, dude. And you're the one telling me that mental health, you just got to man up.
I hate that phrase.
I think there's a misconception, Dave, of what it is that you guys are doing, because it's not industry specific. It's human specific.
Humans.
And although the humans that we know and the most of them happen to be in this industry, because we are too, it's not because of business, and it's not because of those business connections. It's just helping people. My dad used to say to me when he was alive, when you're watching the news and you're watching bad things happen on the news, don't look at the people causing the bad things. Look at the people running to help, because that's who we actually are as human beings. And I think, Adriane, I'd be interested to hear your take on this, because, out of everybody on this call, that you work for the biggest organization in terms of numbers and members and so on and so forth. How was that, you are part of that community. How has that community helped you when the goings got a little bit tougher than you would have liked?
It's interesting. I had a very transformative experience in my first job out of college, which was in the mid 80s. And because I'm old. And so my mom was experiencing a mental health crisis, and I had to go to be with her, which was nowhere near where I lived and worked. And I had no seniority. I had no accumulated time off. I had nothing. But I had a boss who was extremely supportive. And she's like, you go. This is the most important thing. You go do this. You stay as long as you need to stay. I will check in with you. And she would call me. I was there for like 2 weeks, and she called me periodically just to say, you're totally fine. We got you. What do you need from us? What can we do? I was 22, and that was a really important experience for me. So that's sort of the benchmark and the gold standard by which I judge every other of my many jobs and careers since then.
Good.
And I would say that within the printing industry, and certainly within Printing United Alliance, there has been extreme positive support. And I don't know what to attribute that to, other than as a collective. I believe that people in our industry, because it's a very face-to-face, very an industry built on relationships, that I do think that people are much more understanding of each other than perhaps you would be if you're in construction and you're not really talking and interacting as much face-to-face. Or I was an attorney. Let me just tell you, there was a little bit of a gap there in the compassion area in certain aspects of my career as an attorney. But it's a very comfortable place to be in the printing industry. I have been in this industry 10 years, and I still have the passion of the newly converted. I love it. And part of the reason I love it is because it's a relationship-based industry. So I do think the support is there for people. And I do think that the love and compassion is there. And as I sit here today, I am benefiting from that because of what's happening on a personal level in my life. And I have had nothing but support from my workplace and from the people around me. I'm getting messages from people that I would not expect to support me right now as I go through this. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's good. Dave, you either had your hand up or you were swatting a fly. I'm not sure which.
Yeah,
both.
I don't know either. But Adriane, how is your mom right now then?
Um, my mom has passed a long time ago, but my
Okay.
dad died 2 days ago,
Oh,
and I'm sitting in his apartment right now talking
oh my
to you.
gosh.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay, and it was rough, and it was. It's not, ideal, but here's the thing. I needed to leave, and I've been here for 5 of the past 6 weeks, not in my normal workplace and not on my normal work schedule, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got nothing but support from my workplace. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's a busy time for us as we go to the expo, but nobody
Yep.
said, Adriane, I know you have this, but could you try to do this while you're?
Right.
It's all like family first, do your thing, go, go,
Mm.
go. And you don't have to check in. Of course I do, and I'm working, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been great. And I do think that everybody I work with has been in the printing industry for a long time. I do think, again, it's a relationship based industry, and I think people have a deep understanding of humanity. And
Yep. Yep.
it's one of the reasons I love it here.
I remember.
Come on in. The water's warm. It's good.
Yeah. I remember Eric, who's here in the chat. One of the many times. I mean, if you guys haven't met Eric, I don't know how tall you are. I'm just gonna say 6'3", big dude, right?
That's not
And you,
tall, Dave. That's not
no,
tall. 6'5". 6'5". Just saying.
6'5". Okay, I mean, he's just a big dude, and you look at him, I'd be scared like walking past you, Eric, unless I knew you were a teddy bear, right? But I remember we were at Think in Boca Raton, and Eric, you were talking to me about your mom, who at that point was about to pass, and you were crying, right? And I think that kind of vulnerability from a dude like Eric, who certainly have respected for many years in the industry, is what Adriane makes this industry special, and is kind of what we're tapping into here. I often tell Jess and Chris that, maybe some of you have heard this term product market fit, as it relates to building a product and finding the fit with the market. I feel like we have product market fit here, Adriane, with what we're doing, because it's now like the industry is pulling us along, right? It's not like we're trying
Right.
to push this up the hill. We're feeling the tug here.
Yeah.
And
That
as it
does make
relates,
so much sense, right? That does
yeah,
make so much sense.
yep,
Adriane, I think I speak for everybody on this call when I do genuinely say sorry for your loss, and I'm amazed that you found the gumption to come on this call today. So thank you for that. Jess, I just want to come to you quickly, because I'm conscious that we're running out of time, and we want to get some questions if we can. If you do have any questions, by the way, please do pop them in the chat, and I will come to them in a minute or two. But one of the big goals I know of Printing United this year at the Expo is Student Day. It's the perennial, how do we get the next generation involved in the industry? Do you think, and we've said it a couple of times on this call, that next generation feels much more comfortable with the conversation around mental health? And I'm not saying that's a sort of a leading way in, but it's part of the story, isn't it, as to why they could feel comfortable to come in to this world if Sheet for Brains is open and available to them.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree, Rich. I think we've seen it. And this next generation, culture matters to them. Mental health matters to them. They're going to choose to work for an organization that values those things before they take a larger paycheck. We've had those conversations with the students at all of these different conferences and on these calls. We had Mackenzie Griffin, who is one of the all-stars. I don't know if she's here today, but we had her, literally pulled her into a last-minute panel at Dscoop in Denver. And the perspective that she gave was incredible. There was a gentleman in the audience who said, hey, listen, how do I, as a business owner, attract and retain new talent? Like, what is going to keep you at my print company? And she said, you need to catch up with us. That was literally her answer. And I, sitting next to her, grabbed her hand. I'm like, God, I love you. Like, that was amazing. She goes, we care about these things. And if you don't care about them, you're not going to get us, And we have no filter talking about our emotions and our feelings and the things that we're going through and our anxieties and our stresses. And if you're not willing to open the door from at least a business perspective, if you're not just generally a good human and actually care about these things, from a business standpoint, you kind of need to give a shit. And so, yeah, it's every conversation we have, and there's such a healthy amount of young talent out there that is energizing this industry in ways that is so exciting and refreshing. And they're tapping into this. And so it's I don't even remember the original question, but
Don't worry about it. And I'm pleased to say, actually, I'm glad.
like we were on Talk More Print with Mackenzie and Tara. I mean, maybe a year, 2 years ago, guys. It was kind of towards the beginning of this whole journey. And I felt like we walked away from that podcast. I learned so much more from them than I think that, from their interview questions to us and what they wanted to get out of it. There's so much to learn from this next generation.
And I'm glad to say that Talk More Print is now available on Print Island. Just thought I'd say that.
Can I also make the point that both those two are also all-stars?
Yeah, well, all-stars, and I'm like more excited to see them and hug them, and just I'm so excited for them to infuse their energy and passion and drive into this industry, because it's refreshing and it's needed, and I'm so pumped.
Chris, we're running out of time before the Q&A. I just wanted to get your thoughts on what people can expect from the Sheet for Brains booth this year at the Expo. And I know you had some experience at Dscoop earlier on in the summer. What can people expect if they wander in?
I think we're just going to be honest. I think we're just going to open up conversations and see how we can help. I mean, our whole premise here is to be facilitators. So we're not going to have the answers, but we want to help find the answers, help find the resources. We want to help educate. I think we're just going to be honest and have, see how we can help either the individual or the individual running a business navigate this minefield and just raise awareness, really. But we've got a couple of sessions on Spill the Ink, which we're excited about. We've got the booth, like you say. I think we've got a session on day one, Jess and
Wednesday.
David as well.
Yep, 10 a.m.
So, yeah, I think the main thing really, Rich, is honest conversation.
And that's the best kind and the only kind, really, that makes any difference. Thank you, all of you. I'm going to open
Sorry, can I just add, one point? We've got a major announcement on the end of day 3 that we'd just like people to be aware to come over and see us. We're going to be sharing some pretty important and exciting news for the Sheet for Brains movement. So, and then we'll be announcing that and sharing that only at Printing United at the end of day 3.
Interesting. I see what you did there. Thank you for that. If anybody does have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. I see an awful lot of chat in the chat, but I can't see any questions directly, so I'm going to keep asking the panel while we've got you on. A few more, but if you do have any questions, then please do join us in the chat. Tell me, Dave, what's the one thing you want to see different now? If we've opened this conversation up, we've opened the ability for people to join this conversation up. 5 years' time, give me a forward view. How would you like to see the industry change as a result of this open conversation?
That is a good question. Yeah, I think a couple things, but one would be just a more normalized view of mental health and its impact, similar to what you were saying, Adriane, on the bottom line and on business in general. That it's a good thing, but also that the industry is healthier. The industry is challenged right now in certain segments of the industry. I'm thinking of some of our clients, that are pushing against the prevailing winds, and I hope that having healthy people or healthier people in the industry who are willing to put in the work and the time into their mental health helps everyone fight back and get to where we want to be as an industry. So as I look ahead a number of years, my hope would be that Sheet for Brains has played a part in that, that beyond just the group that's here and the folks that are on the line, that it's spread throughout the industry, and that there's programs and tools and resources that we really have codified for the industry. And maybe even branched out beyond our industry here, because this, as you said, is not just unique to the people in this industry. This is to everyone as a human. So that's kind of what I hope to see.
And Jess, it's industries don't start off as industries, do they? Movements don't start off as movements. They start with 2 people having a conversation, and in this case, 4 people having a conversation. But you must be very proud to date of what you've managed to get started with Sheet for Brains. But I guess what you really want to do now is to see it go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is, we've said this, I think, since the beginning, and it was part of the conversation when we started, is we're not for everyone, we're for the one. And if we can help that one person come out of a session or a webinar or a conversation feeling like they're not alone, feeling like they have a resource, or feeling just better about themselves and the conversations they're having and opening up, then we've done our job. We're not looking for world domination. I think to Dave's point, I don't know where that came from, to Dave's point is, in 5 years' time, like, can we have just a more open industry to this type of dialogue? Is the goal of us. And we're just there as kind of a facilitator and a resource to help the industry do that. And we do have a massive announcement, not to plug it again, but on the last day of Printing United, we have a massive announcement because we recognize it's huge over the course of the last few years, how important it is to people and the people that have come to us and say, what can we do to help? What can we, how can we support? How do we get more involved? Michael Ban, I don't know you, but you're amazing in the chat. We just flipped you some info. I mean, so again, we all have day jobs. So how do we expand? How do we reach more ones? We've got plans to do that. We've got plans because we do see the importance. And we've felt that connection and have had those moments with so many people here. And we know that there are so many more. So
we've got on that note, we've got a great question in the chat from Eric. How do we overcome the hierarchy problem when it comes to talking about mental health? Adriane, you work in a large organization, multi-layered, multifaceted. Do you ever find that there is people are inhibited because of the size and the hierarchy in that structure of talking openly?
Well, within our organization, first, we're all remote workers, which doesn't lend itself to, as close of bonds, I think. But we do host a lot of events, and when we see each other, we connect in person at those events, which is nice. I don't know. I don't want to speak on behalf of Printing United Alliance. I will say that our leadership is very open to all conversations and shows some vulnerability. And quite unfortunately, two of our top executives experienced incredible tragedy in the last 2 years in their own lives. And they've been, open about that. I do think that within any organization, large or small, it really is important for your leadership team to set a tone, to understand that acknowledging their own vulnerabilities is super important, and to invite others to feel comfortable and safe in discussing their own vulnerabilities, and that there would not be retaliation. And so I think it's really important for tone setting. And while I have the floor, I do want to say one more thing, that that one thing that hasn't come up in this conversation is addiction. And I will note that every business owner deals either sometimes with their own addiction or the addiction of some of their team. And addiction is rooted in mental health. And so if you are hearing this conversation and think, I really don't have anyone, I think that, think more broadly into terms of addiction, because it is a profound problem in mental health, and that's self-medication in more cases than not. So just to open your mind to that, addiction is something that can be addressed with mental health support. It's both a medical and a mental health condition. So
yeah,
well said.
Yeah, agreed. Here. Well said. Chris, we talk a lot about leadership, but of course, leadership only exists when there's followship. And I think one of the things that it really, you guys have helped open up the conversation in many organizations, large and small, over the last couple of years. But I guess those conversations have only opened up because somebody's allowed them to open up. We still live in a hierarchical world, as Eric points out. Have you got some experience within those conversations where you've seen that leadership really has enabled that fellowship, and therefore those businesses have gone on to succeed?
Yeah, definitely. I think more so in the Dscoop community, where we've been working for a little bit longer. Generally, it was those business leaders, those owners, who are the ones that were really suffering, that first of all took the leap of faith. Unfortunately, I missed the session this year in the Rockies, but the reports from the guys were that the leaders really let go, and there was a lot of emotion flowing in that room. But I think the bit that I've seen from afar is those leaders going one step further. First of all, addressing the points that they're finding hard, but then addressing, well, I've got so-and-so who works for me who's struggling. Can you help me with this person? Or can you guys get on a call and can you? So they led by example. I think our very own John Bailey's done that as well. Dave and Jess have been fantastic in that. I try to do the same. I think it's the only way we can actually filter down what we're trying to achieve by reaching the one is by living by those examples of how to behave and set them. So yes, we have, Rich. We've definitely seen it in the Dscoop community. We believe that it will happen in all communities if we're given the time and the frequency to repeat the message and offer the resources.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap this up now by asking you each the same question. John Bailey often talks about traveling to trade shows and looking for one thing that he can come back with that is going to make a difference in the world of Precision Proco and the world that he occupies. He's not here, so we can talk about him. What's your one thing, each of you, that you're looking forward to from the expo this year? What's the one thing that you would like to come away with, particularly with reference, obviously, to the success of Sheet for Brains? You can't mention the announcement again, Chris. You've done it twice now. So what's the one thing? And I'm going to start with Adriane, so I get a sensible answer. Adriane, what's the one thing that you're looking forward to from this year's expo?
Well, the one thing that I walked away with last year that I'm most grateful for is the connection I made with Sheet for Brains. So
Aww.
I would say in that same vein, I'm looking forward to this year making connections with more people who are very, very interested in helping change our industry for the better.
Nice. I like that. See, now take your lead from that, boys and girls.
Very reasonable. Yeah.
That was a sensible, professional answer. So, Jess, I'm going to come to you next because you're my next best hope.
Nope. Other end of the spectrum.
Now you have to put Dave last because he's impatient Patty over there. I feel like I need to echo Adriane. I think this is a brand new space for us. We've done conferences where you have kind of smaller breakout, educational sessions that are a little bit more intimate. We've not been to an expo in the magnitude of the size of Printing United Expo.
Right.
For us, it's a completely new ballgame. And so I'm curious and I'm excited to have those conversations, to open up the dialogue, to generally just bring more awareness. And so for the takeaway for me, what I hope to leave with is feeling like we connected with people, that it resonated with this different audience. And not that most of this audience, we've met, and there are a lot of people that were connected with the All-Star team. I mean, goodness, they're some of our biggest champions, right? But feeling like we resonated with a much larger audience in a space that we've not been familiar with yet. So
that's good. Thank you. I like that. Dave, I'm going to come to you next, even though I'm going to start calling you Don because for no apparent reason, Jess called you Don. So I think that should become your new name as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So Don, what's the one thing that you're looking forward to?
I don't know why Joe thinks my name is Dom, but whatever, Jess. Getting back at you there, Joe. So, yeah, I think for me, Rich, it would be connecting with one of the ones, meaning somebody who says, look, been following what you guys have been doing the last year, 2 years, or maybe with Rich in the last event, or that they saw something online and man, I haven't said anything, but I'm really touched by it. And I want to share with you something that's on my heart, something that's been difficult, something that I'm working through, and that we have a true human to human connection. We talk about we're in a B2B industry. I think we're an H to H industry, human to human. And I want that human to human connection with at least one person who says, you've given me the permission to just share this.
Good answer. Chris, no pressure. You have the final word on today's webinar.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely human to human. That's something I've really sort of struggled with this year with what's been going on out here in the Middle East. I've missed, unfortunately, two of the best events that these two amazing humans put on for Dscoop and Corneat. But that also leads on to the next point. The beautiful thing about this expo is the multiple verticals. So we're going to reach, everything from apparel to wide format, digital format down to labels and packaging. Everyone's there. So there's more people that we can reach and help.
Listen, you've been fabulous guests today. Thank you for joining me on Print Island. To Chris Minn from Digital Ink, to Don Rosendahl from Mindfire, to Joe DeCola from Blooming Colour, and to the lovely Adriane. Thank you particularly for joining us today on what's been a difficult few days for you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you've learned a little bit more about the work that Sheet for Brains have not only been doing, but are continuing to do. And we look forward, hopefully, to seeing all of you at the Expo in Las Vegas in a few weeks' time. Thank you, and we'll see you somewhere soon.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Go All Stars.
See you soon.